What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Showdown premium show. Man, I don't even know what the pre-lock. We're at the pre-lock show, man. We're scrambling here, but it's good. Man, we we got it. Football is back. This is it. This is going to kick off the beginning of a long line of NFL football for months and months and months. It's finally here. You can put the best ball bros can put away all their best ball drafts. This thing is over with. Haven't looked too far into the schedule, but I'm assuming I'm here a lot with this guy that's on here with us tonight. Squirrel, man, you don't need an introduction. Every time we do a show, there's something else I need to congratulate you on. So the latest thing was the recent live events and everything. Oh, blah, 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 man. It's on and on. How you doing, man?
Good, yeah. 2 years in a row, kicked off a football season, finishing second in a baseball live final. But yeah, we made it, man. It was a long summer, a lot of best ball, especially today. I had a bunch of tickets I had to run through, just auto drafting. But yeah, no more best ball, man. It's time for the real thing. So yeah, it's a good game, and we're already starting off with a little bit of intrigue.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big betting news, the big injury news is Travis Kelce. Just like Tuesday with the knee hyperextension. Big impact on both the total and the spread there. So, yeah, it's gonna be a good game. Nice to have football back.
Is when you go second place in an MLB final right before NFL starts, do you consider that a bankroll booster, or is your bankroll so huge right now that it's just there's a new Tesla or something like? How does it work for you?
Yeah, I know. I say to myself, like, all right, I'm going to be really, really careful, and like, got to manage the bankroll for football. I'm not going to do anything differently. And then I immediately just drop a ton on like football qualifiers. But yeah, I'm gonna try to manage it carefully this year again. And yeah, it's great. It's great to start off, with that bankroll boost, to know you're gonna have a good year, and just enjoy the NFL.
Yep. So, guys, if you're tuning in here, this is the first show of the year. We're going to be doing these. I'm going to be doing these every Monday and Thursday. I'm sure Squirrel's going to be on all of those, if not, or most of them. And we'll do them on Sunday nights, too. There's somebody coming in on Sunday nights for it. But very interactive show. We're doing it live, and we're streaming all the way up until kickoff, which right now is 40 minutes away. We're about 40 minutes away. Not kickoff, but the line. Once the lineup locks and the DK and FanDuel timer hits 0, we're out of here. So we're going all the way up until now. Unlike what we used to do, when we used to do these things in the morning and we build in some lineups and we're doing all that, we're now doing it pre-lock, really close to kickoff. So we've already got the inactives, actives and inactives, which is something we did not have the advantage of when we used to do our older show. So today, you mentioned it a little bit. Huge news already coming out of Casey. Travis Kelce is going to be inactive tonight. Looking up and down the inactives, there's not a lot. Emmanuel Mosley is inactive for Detroit. That secondary, he's okay. That might help the KC wide receivers a little bit. I don't know. We'll talk about the KC wide receivers. But the Travis Kelce news, and if KC, that's the only real big one I see. So Kelce, we got the news here. He's inactive. What does that do for you?
So it's going to be a lot of Noah Gray, right? And I mean, it's like a bigger version of what we always see with NFL Week 1, with the main slate, where there's some injuries that trickle out, contract situations, but they can't change the pricing. And yeah, they can't change the pricing on Noah Gray, on Travis Kelce. They would probably make Mahomes more expensive, actually, because you don't have to balance out the Kelce price. I think we're going to see a lot of Noah Gray in Showdown, like particularly on DK, where you kind of need those savings because they have the salary multiplier in the captain spot. And then probably some Blake Bell as well. But I think maybe the better play is to kind of give a little bit of a boost to the other Kansas City pass catchers. And one of the guys like I'm particularly interested in is McKinnon with Kansas City. Like, I think he might see a little bit more like red zone looks that might have otherwise gone to Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Also wanted to point out to the chat, like we're here for you guys. This is a super interactive show. I could sit here and man, I don't have to be on camera to build lineups. I could be doing that on my own time. So I want to take questions. I want questions out there, man. I want people to fire them off. We're here, very interactive. We're going to get to you, guaranteed. So we will start building a lineup right now, though. We'll start talking through the player pool. We're going to start off on DK here and talk about some players we like. We got a captain spot. It's very interesting tonight because I think we have to dock Patrick Mahomes a little bit. He just lost his best pass catcher, the guy who's been a matchup nightmare for him for years. And when you look up and down the receiving corps, they did him no favors in the offseason. There's just not much after that. We'll talk about some guys. I still do like some guys because it's Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. But captain spot, I'm not as in love with Mahomes as I would have been about 48 hours ago. There's some really good pass catchers on the Detroit side. Talk to me. Who are you feeling for captain?
So I think Mahomes is going to be the most popular choice, and so I like the idea of going underweight. It was a little bit easier to go underweight Mahomes when you had Kelce there because you could spend up for Kelce, and it would actually kind of increases the chance that Mahomes just gets priced off of the lineup, even if he has a decent game. I like the idea of going with a Detroit guy here. I think Detroit might surprise some people. It could be wrong. Arrowhead's difficult to go into. Kansas City's difficult place to play, but I don't know if the Kansas City defense is going to be up to this task. So I like the idea of going with one of the Detroit guys. I think, we saw the total drop. We saw after the Kelce injury news, and we saw the spread tighten up a little bit. So I kind of like going with that. My favorite captain, I think, is going to be David Montgomery for going through, for a tournament build.
I like it. You went with the. I was gonna say I do like Montgomery, and I especially like him when we get to FanDuel and start talking about them because I think he is going to be just like Jamal Williams. He is going to score so many touchdowns in this offense. He's better than Jamal Williams, so he's going to get that same role. I do like that. Yeah, you brought up a good point about Casey's defense. He's not even on the inactive list, but Chris Jones is one of, if not their best defender, one of them. He's out. Contract dispute. He's not playing tonight. He's not going to show up on the inactive list, but he is not playing. That's a big ding for that defense. So, I think Detroit got a lot more appealing with the loss of Kelce and the loss of Chris Jones. So, I'm okay with Montgomery there in captain. There's a few other guys in this spot on DK that I would say I like. I don't mind the Jahmyr Gibbs here, his counterpart, and I think there's a path. Unlike a normal running back rotation, I think there's a path for both of them in some games this year because Jahmyr Gibbs is just going to be all over the place. He's going to catch balls. That's what he did in college, a lot of them. So, Jahmyr Gibbs is there for me. If I'm looking for a cheaper version now, I don't know how popular this guy is going to be in captain, but Noah Gray, digging into a little research on him earlier today, you'd be surprised to learn that last year he was on the field for over 50% of the snaps that Mahomes was on the field anyway. So he's already on the field. Now he's going to be probably 100%. And you might not even think about Noah Gray, but he was fifth on the team last year in receptions. Like he was, somewhat active in this offense, and you never even heard a squeak from him because Kelce takes up all the headlines. But it's his show tonight, so I don't mind somebody like Noah Gray and captain and feeling pretty good about that. Let's talk about some flexes. Let's just go position by position with a few flexes. Like we talked about Mahomes. We think about Goff in this game. One thing stands out to me for Jared Goff real quick is I almost never, during the regular season, want to play Jared Goff when he's on the road. He's just not good on the road. I don't know what it is, but what do you think about Goff?
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up overweight Jared Goff, just aiming to be a little bit underweight on Patrick Mahomes, and part of that is just trying to get unique, right? Like, first week, I guess we should go over that. Both FanDuel and DraftKings single game formats. It's very easily to get your lineup duplicated, and if you get a duplicated lineup, the win, even if it wins first place, you got to split those winnings. And so if you duplicate with like 1,000 people, you got to split that first place prize 1,000 ways. So I think I'm going to end up having like more Goff than I may be comfortable with. And part of that's just trying to get unique. It's one thing about Goff is like this Detroit offense has been pretty concentrated, right? Like with Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and it's like if it's such a concentrated offense, like you maybe don't need to play the quarterback when you can just play the the guy that's going to catch the passes and get a point per reception. So I'm going to say like I'm going to aim to be overweight Jared Goff, but I'm not totally comfortable.
Yeah. Look, just glancing in the chat real quick. We got J3 is. This is a weird comment. He says, "Happy Taco Thursday." First of all, I don't know how he knew I ate tacos tonight for dinner, so that's thing. But then he says, "Happy Taco Thursday, chop and turtle, buddy." This is not turtle on here. You got the wrong animal. This is squirrel. Turtle's not even with us anymore, but both of them actually make quite a bit of bank in DFS. But squirrel's on a different level here. So let's talk about some running backs. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on board with what you. Usually I don't want golf, but this is a showdown. You can't not play golf here. Running backs. We talk a little bit about Gibbs. We talk about Montgomery. You like him in captain. I love him on FanDuel where he's going to score some touchdowns for us. What about some of these other guys? Do you think Pacheco? They don't have Kelce. They're going to lean on the running game more. Do you think it's more Pacheco?
I don't know if they're going to really lean on the running game like that much more. I actually wonder if it's less likely that Pacheco does well with Kelce out. Like with Kelce in there, like he's irreplaceable. I mean, there's not a lot of players that are affecting the line as much as Kelce did when the injury news came out. Like with Kelce in there, I thought there was a better chance this game becomes Kansas City goes up big and then they're just running the ball, right? Grinding out the clock with Pacheco. Now I actually like McKinnon a little bit more because this could be a game where maybe Detroit gets the early lead, right? And then Kansas City's having to pass a little bit more, to come back and this is more of a competitive game. I mean, the line moving says it's going to be a more competitive game. So, I'm going to be playing some Pacheco, but I also like McKinnon. I'm going to be overweight McKinnon, I think.
I 100% agree with the McKinnon take, man. I love him tonight just to get some extra work without Kelce there. So I'm on board with that. Now, I don't know are you a fan of reading the preseason training camp coach speak from the reporters when they spit that out?
No, really. I was scrambling today with best ball, trying to catch up on, all the coach speak. It usually doesn't mean a whole lot, right? Like if I had $1 for every running back that's going to catch more passes this year, like,
Yeah, the KC
everybody's more out of the backfield. You're going to be surprised by.
I say that to bring up the KC reporters are enthralled with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's getting a lot of first team reps in camp. He's getting. Hey, you can post that Star Wars "It's a Trap" gif because that is a trap. I'm not. Are you touching a little Clyde Edwards-Helaire tonight? You'd be quite contrarian.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's more of a almost play for an injury. I'll have some of them, but like single digit, percent, and he's down there at 3,600. So you never know. And the Chiefs have surprised us before on showdown slates with their running back usage. But probably just a sprinkle of Clyde Edwards-Helaire in multi-entry, like the 150 bills.
Look at producer Steve. He's quick on the draw, man. He gets that stuff up there fast. All right. Let's talk about some wide receivers now. A lot of them in this game because the Kelce injury opens up so much for KC, and Detroit is already just a fun team in general. So there's going to be points in this game. Talk me through some of your favorite wide receivers on both sides of this ball.
So I think the absolute standout at wide receiver is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like I said, the Detroit offense has been pretty concentrated. He's just a reception and target monster. Like you look through the game log, all the games last season with double-digit targets, double-digit receptions. And so I think he's the main wide receiver piece. He's the main piece of the offense, I think, for Detroit. I think the Kansas City side is where it gets a little bit more interesting. We see Sky Moore maybe stepping into a much bigger role. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling still there, and then Kadarius Toney. I have Sky Moore ranked as the number one. But MVS and Toney are not that far behind. Actually, like Toney a little bit. I thought he'd be more popular than what we're seeing there. So I like him. He's almost like a little bit of a contrarian play, but maybe he's a guy that picks up a little bit more usage with Travis Kelce sitting.
Yeah, I agree with some of that stuff. Most of it, I would say. First of all, I want to address a question in chat. Now that we're on wide receivers, Brian asks, "Any interest in Rashee Rice? Do you have any interest in Rashee Rice?"
Probably not. He's the rookie, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see. They've already got so much wide receiver depth that I don't know that they need to like throw him out there. I mean, I would maybe expect a similar season from Rashee Rice than we saw from Sky Moore last year. So maybe next season for Rice. But I think
maybe the Super Bowl.
yeah, exactly. But they also have like Justin Watson. So that's I think who would be the wide receiver for is Watson. And then like you might see Rashee Rice and Justin Ross like rotating in for certain packages. But I think it's going to start with like Sky Moore, MBS, and then Tony. Now, if Tony had missed the game, I think that's where some of the other like wide receivers become a little more interesting.
Yeah, I would say Rashee Rice is, for me, honestly, when I think about Rashee Rice, first of all, he had some really bad drops in the preseason. I don't think that instills much confidence in the coaching staff to put him out there. When I think about Rashee Rice back in college, Justin Ross was in college a couple years earlier than that, and Justin Ross was a better receiver. I don't know why both of them are active tonight. We don't know if active is just like, well, they're still not going to get on the field. You don't know. But if I have my choice between the two and we have no idea if either one of them is even going to see the field, I'd probably go with Justin Ross. But they're both kind of stretching it thin because, like you said, Sky Moore is there. I mean, we can talk about Sky Moore right now. I like Sky Moore quite a bit tonight. And in fact, I want to address. I don't know if you're familiar with the MLB show. Our buddy Butthole Jenkins is in chat. He's a big MLB guy, but he says he wants my fill it in the plums play of the day. That's Sky Moore for me. I like Sky Moore. Now, this is a lot of coach speak coming out of camp and all that, but I like him. I think he could be like a healthier version of Kadarius Toney. Like Toney just can't stay on the field, but boy, when he's on there for his 12 snaps, he's electric. I think Sky Moore can be that too in his second year. So that's my guy. What do you think about old Sky Moore?
Yeah, I think he's the best of the Kansas City receivers. And I actually saw somebody mention in chat, somebody I forgot to mention is Richie James. So he's going to be, I think, probably ahead of like Watson on depth chart and also returning kicks and punts as well, which is always like an interesting pairing if you want to put them together with the Chiefs defense, right? Like get that punt return double dip. But yeah, I think Sky Moore is the number one guy there. And he's the guy that they're probably expecting to make a leap forward, right? And it's not going to be a better situation than when the Chiefs' leading receiver, is Travis Kelce is out. So I think Sky Moore gets one of the biggest boosts with Kelce out.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of people are going to go to MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'm just not in love with that pick. I don't think the injuries matter for him. Like he's just sometimes has a great game, but it's so rare. And the rest of the times, it's not really anything there that helps you out too much. And so I would probably lean towards being a little underweight on MVS. I don't know. He's like the biggest name of the bunch. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I like Sky Moore better. I think I've got MVS and Tony projected about the same. So yeah, and I'd maybe lean a little bit more towards Tony. Tony's more expensive, so I think that's actually going to lead potentially to a little bit less ownership than we're even showing right here. So I mean, if I had to rank the Chiefs wide receivers, I'm probably going like Sky Moore first, then Tony, then MVS, then Richie James, then Justin Watson after that.
Yeah, Richie James. I've always thought he was a really decent player. Like I really thought he was he had that Eagles playoff game last year in round 2. And I had all the Richie James. Like I did all the research, man. I got loaded up on Richie James. And he was having a decent night, probably like 6 or 7 catches for like 40 or 50 yards. Super cheap player. I could live with it. But then the last drive of the game, he was wide open for about a 70-yard touchdown, and he just flat out dropped it. So I remember that one. But he's a decent little player, man. I like him, but you never know. Patrick Mahomes is a magician. He's going to make one of these guys look really good. And then you mentioned Justin Watson at 200. Justin Watson's had some big games in his NFL career too, because he has Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball, and you just never know. So I think that covers the KC wide receivers pretty good. We talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's tight ends, there's running backs who catch the ball for Detroit, but after St. Brown, there's like nothing at wide receiver that really stands out for you, right?
Yeah, there's just not much there. I think if I'm going to take a Detroit receiver that's not named Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's probably Josh Reynolds. Marvin Jones is also in play. Somebody that is a little bit interesting is Khalif Raymond, but it's more of a price situation where he's only 800. I think of the super cheap guys, like the cheaper than Noah Gray guys. I think Khalif Raymond is probably my favorite. But he could just get a couple catches, maybe not even that. So I think you kind of touched on it earlier. I think bringing Jahmyr Gibbs is to make up for some of this lack of receiver talent or depth after Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I really like of the Detroit pieces on offense, what I really like is Amon-Ra St. Brown first, then the running backs, and then it's really just leftovers for the wide receivers.
Friend of the show, Lip Eric Johnson, is in chat. He says, someone talk me off of Clyde Edwards-Helaire at captain. Buddy, I shouldn't have to talk you off of Clyde Edwards-Helaire at captain, but I'll let Squirrel handle it. Maybe Squirrel likes him at captain. I don't know.
I think if you're trying to enter the Millie Maker, like that's going to be different, and you don't know what's going to happen. But I am worried that it would take like an injury situation, in-game injury situation, to make Clyde Edwards-Helaire really relevant to the point where you want him in the captain. And remember, it's always tempting to save money at the captain spot because of that salary multiplier on DraftKings, but everybody's getting 1.5 times the points too. And so, you're going to be competing against lineups that have Mahomes in there in the captain spot and are getting 1.5 times Mahomes points. So I tend to lean away from the really cheap captains that are not necessarily going to see the field. But if it's your $1 million shot, then yeah, I think that's the kind of contest you would want to play that lineup in.
I would say, as far as that's concerned, like, we don't know. Who knows when they kick off the ball and KC gets it first? Maybe it's him out there starting instead of Pacheco, and they fooled us all. And Lip, you win $1 million, man, because Andy Reid duped us. All right, but I'm with Squirrel. Other than something crazy happening like that we don't know about, I think he probably needs an injury in this game to Pacheco specifically to go through. And if I'm going to play the injury game, like, I don't even want to do that. But if I would just do the siege method and take the backup quarterback here. Like, take one of the backup quarterbacks if I have to play for an injury, because that's a real quick way to shoot up the leaderboard. If once every 50 games you get that quarterback injury, but if I'm playing the injury game, that's the one I'm going with. But otherwise, CEH probably not for me. But I don't know. All right.
The other thing with the injury card, like, if you're playing for an in-game injury, that in-game injury has to happen early. If Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, in the late in the fourth quarter, it doesn't make a difference. Like, he's probably going to be, on the winning lineup if he's had a great game. If you're playing the injury card, you need to root for like a first quarter injury. I think it's maybe more likely that there is a total role change. It's all been smoke and mirrors. It's possible. I mean, we've seen the Chiefs do that before. I don't know. I mean, they've got, like, I see 2 running backs ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but maybe they're using him in the goal line. Maybe he gets a couple goal line, touches and gets in the end zone a couple times. So it's not crazy. It's a good, like, Millie Maker lineup. But yeah, definitely not for small field.
J3 says, before I bounce, you like a parlay with the Braves and the under on this game. First off, the Braves, I think it's Adam Wainwright. Yeah, buddy, fire that one up. And then the under, I don't mind the under here. Detroit's a flashy team and they can score, but I don't know that KC really steps on the gas pedal here. I think they kind of like maybe reel it back in a little bit, which slows Detroit down. Under the 53 seems perfectly fine with me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I liked the under was 54.5 from earlier this week. I think the way Detroit wins this game is by keeping Kansas City off the field. And it's part of the reason why I like David Montgomery. But yeah, I mean, they also brought in like an additional running back, early draft pick in Gibbs. Yeah, I think they're going to use those running backs as much as they can. So yeah, I like the under.
All right, let's talk a few tight ends here. Not very much to speak of. Noah Gray, I've hit on him. I've touched on him. I think he's a really interesting, 2.4K on DraftKings. There's a lot to like about him. Don't know what the ownership's going to be. I think, when you get the Kelce positively inactive, now all the ownership projections are scrambling to see what happens. So I'm not sure there. But the other tight end of note in this game is Sam Laporta. He's a rookie. Now, typically, I don't want to play rookies in DFS because honestly, it sounds like a cliche, but it's really probably the second toughest position in the NFL to come in as a rookie and be really good. So I'm not as much on Laporta, but how do you feel about Laporta? And then hit on Gray too.
I feel the same way. I mean, it just seems like you always see these tight ends taken in the first round, and then around year 2 or 3, that's when they really start to shine. It's a difficult position, and it's almost like a cliche at this point, like the highly rated rookie tight end that comes in and seems to be struggling, but like they've got to pick up the blocking, they've got to pick up the pass routes. It's a difficult position. So I mean, I think he'll catch some passes. I think they're going to use him. But I probably like Noah Gray a little bit more, and Gray is half the price. One guy that I think we should just touch on a little bit is like Blake Bell. I think is 200. So that's like your super ultra like cheap punt play. I think Bell will see some action. Like you used to always. I think both Bell and Noah Gray have been the showdown guys that come in for years and take the touchdowns away from Travis Kelce. They both kind of look a little bit like Kelce when you just see the flash on the screen of a big tight end, catching the ball in the end zone, and then it turns out it's it's Bell or Noah Gray. So I think if you really want to go there, and use a 200 player, I think Blake Bell is probably my favorite of the super cheap guys.
Fair enough. Real quick, kickers and defense. You got any interest in these defenses here?
For 150 builds, I do, but less than 10%. I'll probably be underweight both of them. The defenses always seem to be a little more popular than they should be because people like to see their score, right? Like they get 10 points right away. But even with a touchdown, like they sometimes aren't relevant. And especially this game, I expect we're going to see points scored. I don't think we're going to see a bunch of turnovers, sacks. Kansas City knows how to play at home. Like Detroit is competent. So I don't think it's one of those defensive games. You never know when you're going to get like a defensive touchdown and a kick return touchdown, and then the defense is suddenly vaulting into the winning lineup. But it doesn't seem like that kind of game to me.
And the kickers are always great for cash because they're just steady, rock solid. And Kansas City has one of the best of them in the game, Harrison Butker. So those guys are always good. Throw me let's throw a couple guys in flex real quick and just to try to put a bow on DraftKings. We got 14 minutes till slate's lock, so I'll go first here. I'll throw in Noah Gray. I really feel like he's just a rock solid, cheap play, and I think he ends up on the optimal basically. Who's the guy you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, I like Noah Gray, particularly in the flex spot. I think maybe Jerick McKinnon would also be a favorite of mine for the flex for tournaments.
Fair enough. So you're on Montgomery and Kaplen. I like his counterpart, Jahmyr Gibbs, his running back mate, I should say. Gray, McKinnon, all good. On DraftKings, I've hit on it for Mr. Jenkins. I like me some Sky Moore quite a bit tonight, man. It's show me tonight. It's time to show me, man. You're not a rookie anymore. Kelce's down. They need somebody to catch balls, and I'm looking at the receiving room, and it's not great. So let's take a look at some FanDuel stuff and see if we can't if there's anything that is different pricing, or it's just a different format of game. So we got about 13 minutes. Guys, get your questions in if you have any questions. That's would be a great thing for us to answer anything you want to talk about. Let's take a look at FanDuel. Is there anything jumping out to you on FanDuel that, so we know it's a scoring difference and we know the roster construction is different with just the MVP and you don't get charged for it. And so you like Montgomery over there on DraftKings. Do you change your stance on FanDuel?
Yeah, I mean, I like Montgomery even more on FanDuel, right? Because it's more touchdown dependent, and you don't have the salary multiplier. One thing it's difficult to get away from Mahomes at the MVP spot. He just projects so much better than everybody else. Like on DraftKings, his main competition now is maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Amon-Ra is getting the full point per reception on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's harder to see anybody overtaking Mahomes. So it's maybe a situation where you want to at least match the field in the MVP spot with Mahomes, and then try to get a little bit different elsewhere in your lineup.
Yeah, FanDuel, it's just tough to get away from, like you said, quarterbacks in the MVP don't get charged any extra money for it. Yeah, it's just, and this non PPR, so the wide receivers aren't as explosive. Love some running backs. Again, we're in a game with Patrick Mahomes, and even Jared Goff can get into a little bit of a shootout here. So yeah, it's tough to get away from quarterbacks. I'm with the Montgomery take, but also I'm with the Patrick Mahomes in MVP. I don't think I'd play him on DK as a captain, but I'm down with the MVP, especially like Montgomery over here. Don't like Jahmyr Gibbs as much over here, speaking of Detroit running backs, because it's non-PPR. And I think when they get anywhere inside, I want to say the 5-yard line, 6-yard, whatever the number is for them, it's going to be David Montgomery. It's not going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't believe. Jahmyr is going to have to rely on receptions and breaking a long one, which he's very capable of. But on FanDuel, that it really bodes well for David Montgomery's style. You see any pricing discrepancies amongst these wide receivers that stand out to you, different than DraftKings, or I see Marvin Jones is like the second most expensive wide receiver here.
Yeah, so one thing I'd noticed is that Montgomery is actually a lot more expensive on FanDuel, but that makes sense because his game is like more fitting for the FanDuel style. Among the wide receivers, I think MVS is a little bit more expensive than Tony on FanDuel, and it's flipped on DraftKings. So it makes Tony maybe a little bit more of a value, maybe makes MVS a little bit less appealing on FanDuel. I'm kind of higher on Tony anyway. Like the main drawback with Tony is you never know when he's going to be healthy. But if he's playing in the game, assuming there's no in-game injury, then hopefully he's good to go.
Man, I think you touched on a great point, a great play here is Kadarius Toney on FanDuel, a lot more than DraftKings. He really literally might get 12 to 15 snaps tonight, but they give it to him in the red. There's no Kelce tonight. This guy could be the number one red zone target for Mahomes. And he might only be in the game for, like I said, a super limited number of snaps, which really hurts the PPR aspect on DraftKings, but we're touchdown hunting on FanDuel. I love Kadarius Toney. He could score you literally 2 or 3 touchdowns on 15 snaps. That's how good he is in the red zone, around the red zone. I love that play on FanDuel. So I'm in that one. Got a couple of questions here in chat. Let me see if I can find them. Would we what was it? Goff? If you have one lineup, Anthony wants to know Goff or Gibbs. If you have one lineup, I'm assuming maybe DraftKings, but I have no idea. He didn't specify. Goff or Gibbs.
I'd probably go Goff. I think Gibbs is a good play. I'm just worried he's going to be a little bit more highly owned than you'd expect because I think people love to play the unknown, and people are going to see a rookie say, oh, maybe nobody knows about Gibbs, but like everybody knows about Gibbs, and everybody's thinking that, and so he could end up being overowned. And like they've got a really reliable veteran running back there, David Montgomery already. So are they going to want to throw Gibbs like right to the fire in Kansas City in his first game? Maybe not. I mean, maybe he's a guy that I'm going to like a lot more 6 weeks from now than I do tonight.
Yeah, I see Dean in chat dropping spam links. I don't know what he's doing tonight. Must be up to no good. But Samuel the Sniper brings up Josh Reynolds, the name Josh Reynolds. Looking at the Detroit receiving room, it's really bad outside of St. Brown. And I do remember last year there was a couple games where we did the whole Goff to Reynolds narrative thing because they both played in LA, and I thought they were friends. And he looked his direction quite a bit at times last year. And I'm looking at the receiver room going, boy, that is a bad room for Detroit. Like Josh Reynolds could be in play here, right?
I think so, and I think he's a better play on FanDuel than on DraftKings, just because I have I have Reynolds and Cleve Raymond at about the same. Reynolds a little bit more, but there's a big price gap on DraftKings. Khalif Raymond on DraftKings is only 800. On FanDuel, they're a little bit closer in price. 8,000 versus 7,000. So I do like Reynolds as one of the better plays in his price range.
Yeah. You got, what was it? Butthole Jenkins says Dean is a voyeur. Yeah, Dean is a voyeur, man. We addressed that on the show one time. Dean likes to watch. It's a weird thing he's got going on there, but glad you remember that, Jenkins. But so we're on FanDuel over here. We like Montgomery and MVP. Talk to me about over here where you have limited roster space. Are you more or less inclined to play a defense or a kick? But can we play defense even on? Yeah, defense or a kicker over here on FanDuel as opposed to DraftKings. What do you think?
I'm weirdly more inclined to play a kicker on FanDuel. It doesn't make a whole ton of sense, but I think part of it is there's no point per reception, but the kicker scoring is the same. So the kickers actually make up they're kind of more competitive for those spots on FanDuel versus DraftKings. Like DraftKings, like Amon-Ra St. Brown can get 22 points pretty easily. On FanDuel, that's you got to take away half a point for each of his receptions. That's like 5-6 points. But the kicker scoring is the same. So I actually do kind of like the kickers a little bit more on FanDuel than on DraftKings.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple of flex players here that we might like on FanDuel and see if they're any different than what we had on DraftKings. Montgomery MVP, solid choice there. Looking at racking up some touchdowns. That's what gets it. That's what gets you in the winner circle on FanDuel. I'll throw Kadarius Toney out there. I love that play over here. So throw in some Kadarius Toney and give me another flex of your liking on FanDuel.
Sure, somebody that's I kind of was a little bit down on him on DraftKings, but I think he's a better play on FanDuel is actually Laporta, the tight end. I mean, he's still he's a tight end. He's going to be in his first game. I don't know if they're going to want to throw him to the fire. But if he's getting red zone looks, that touchdown is more important on FanDuel. He's only 6,500 on FanDuel, whereas he's 5,000 on DraftKings. Like that 5,000 is a bigger impact on DraftKings. So like Laporta, it kind of priced down a little bit more relatively on FanDuel.
Yeah, so even if you swapped out Laporta for a Noah Gray or something along those lines. You see where we're going here with this lineup. It's interesting because you got 2 spots left. You'd have over 15,000 per spot left. So number one, you can eliminate your minimum salary in the lineup optimizer. You don't need it on a night like tonight. You're not worried about salary. You'll never hit the salary cap on a bunch of teams. It's just not worth it. So in a spot like this where you got this much money left over and you've already played the 3 guys we did. Are you more likely to go now to the quarterback position and just eat up a little bit of that salary, or would you just keep building some, one-off wide receivers and running backs?
I'd probably use some of the salary. I think Mahomes fits in this lineup. Like we're pretty different here already. We've got the Kansas City receiver in there with Toney, but we've got David Montgomery at the MVP spot. So maybe this is a lineup that's really screaming the under for this game. But it's tough to see Mahomes not in the lineup at all.
Yeah. that would leave you, if you were building this one, 13 grand. Lots of options there. I don't know, just so many things right there. But I'd take, if I was to rebuild this one and go Montgomery and MVP, you could go with an all like grinded out game and play Pacheco. Throw you a little Pacheco in there and flex. Montgomery, Pacheco, 11.8 per player left. Who would you go in a lineup like this where you're assuming let's keep the scoring low and let's keep the quarterbacks out of the end zone for the most part and let's feed the running backs? Who else would fit that game script?
Probably the tight ends. Right? Like it's a game where I'm seeing, a lot of, the touchdowns going to the, a lot of short touchdowns, right? Like a lot of red zone touchdowns, but not a lot of big splash plays. That's a possibility here. Like we're missing Kelce. This is not the Chiefs that had like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. So maybe this is more of a possession type game. And I would look towards the tight ends.
Yeah, it's all about finding your game script and following through it. And so that's where we are right there. We got about 2 minutes until this thing locks up, and then we're going to jump out of here. Looking for questions. Detroit boss, bro. Detroit was counting on Jameson Williams. He really kind of let him down, man. So that's unfortunate because if you throw when you throw Jameson Williams in this lineup, wow, this Detroit team is going to be something tough to handle. Let's see here. What do we got? We got Torkelson ×2. He must have homered twice. Anybody got a score on the Tampa game against Seattle? I'd like to get a score on the Tampa game there. I'm kind of rooting for Tampa.
1-0. 1-0 Seattle.
Still 1-0. All right. Unfortunate. Let's go. We need Tampa there. So I don't know. What else you got, Squirrel, before we jump out? We got about roughly a minute left, and then we're out of here. You got any last words for the peoples?
No, it's here, man. It's football's locking in just 90 seconds or so. So it's good to be back. Take a look in the lobbies, make sure there's no overlay or anything. Sometimes the sites like that big contests for week one and for the Thursday night game. But yeah, it's good to be back.
Oh, Torkelson was a Dean dong. Dean is just crushing the dongs lately. Congratulations, Dean. You're the man there. You are the man of the people. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. You got less than a minute before this thing locks up, and we're going to sit down and watch some football tonight. Real football at the professional level for the first time in a long time, and we won't have very many empty Thursdays and Saturdays and Sundays moving forward for a good 6 months or so. So we appreciate you tuning in, guys. We're going to be back every Monday and Thursday with this show. For Squirrel, the guy who crushes everything. For Squirrel Patrol, John Breslin, I was your host, Head Chopper. We're out of here. Good luck in those GPPs. We'll be back.